The transport shuttle from Earth broke through the turquoise clouds of Aurelian Prime like a shard of silver slicing through silk. Its thrusters hummed low, cushioned by the planet's thick ionosphere. From the viewport, Ethan Rice, the only human cadet in the Intergalactic Peace Academy, stared wide-eyed at the city below, floating spires that shimmered with bioluminescent veins of green and blue. He swallowed hard. His reflection in the glass looked out of place. Brown hair cropped short, dark circles under his eyes from the 12-day jump, and that slightly awkward posture of someone who'd spent most of his life in gravity wells, not in the elegant anti-grav chambers of the alien elite. He whispered to himself, "First day, Ethan. Don't screw it up." Arrival. The landing deck was a cathedral of light. Dozens of cadets, reptilian, avian, silicon-based, even one crystalline being whose body refracted the sunlight into prisms, stood in formation. Ethan felt 100 alien eyes, or equivalents, turn toward him as he stepped off the shuttle ramp. A hush fell over the group. A tall figure approached. Instructor Velcara, an Oran female, towered nearly 8 feet high, her silver exoskeleton gleaming like armor, her voice a harmonic resonance. "Welcome, Cadet Rice. The first of your kind to attend the Intergalactic Peace Academy," she said, her tone courteous but cool. "You'll find that communication is the key to unity here. Do you have your translator implant calibrated?" Ethan touched the small metallic node at his temple. "Yes, ma'am. Fully synced." "Good. You'll be assigned to Unit Theta 7 for your orientation exercises." "Dismissed." He nodded, forcing confidence. As he walked toward the waiting group of cadets, whispers rippled through them, words his translator couldn't quite smooth over. "Primitive species. Their vocal cords click when they speak. He still breathes oxygen methane. Disgusting." Ethan ignored them, though his gut tightened. This was supposed to be humanity's great step forward, a chance to prove they were worthy of galactic inclusion. But already, it felt like high school all over again, except this time the bullies were from 17 different worlds. Unit Theta 7's leader, a Xylarian cadet named Kaelrin, eyed him with open disdain. Xylarans were humanoid but taller, with azure skin patterned in iridescent scales and silver eyes that glowed faintly in dim light. Kaelrin was effortlessly graceful, his voice melodic, the kind of being who had never stumbled over a word in his life. "So this is the Earther," Kaelrin said, his lips curving. "Your speech device must be faulty. Your tone modulation sounds primitive, like rocks grinding." Ethan stiffened. The translator implant worked perfectly, which meant Kaelrin was mocking him deliberately. He forced a smile. "Guess I'll just have to learn to grind rocks more elegantly." The Xylarian chuckled, a sound like tinkling glass. "Humor. How quaint." The others laughed with him. Ethan pretended not to care, though his chest burned. The trials begin. The Academy's first challenge came sooner than expected, a linguistic synchronization exercise, designed to test each cadet's ability to adapt across languages. Teams were given a complex navigational problem written in the extinct dialects of 4 different civilizations. Ethan's team gathered around a hovering holodisplay. While the others parsed the glyphs with ease, Ethan's translator lagged. He frowned at the floating symbols that shimmered and morphed. Kaelrin leaned closer, smirking. "You don't even recognize the base script of the Korathi. It's child's play." "Give me a second," Ethan muttered. "The syntax looks recursive." "Ah, so your translator is slow and your brain," Kaelrin sneered. "Perhaps you should let the advanced species handle it." Laughter rippled through the group again. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He focused, studying the patterns manually. The Korathi language used layered syntax, meaning encoded not in the words but in the shifts of light across the glyphs. It wasn't about vocabulary. It was about perception. Then something clicked in his mind. He adjusted the hollow's polarization manually, filtering the glyphs through the ship's light spectrum. "The message isn't instructions," he said. "It's coordinates and a warning. The course is set through a gravity shear field." Caelrin's smirk faded. He double-checked with his console and froze. Ethan was right. Instructor Velcara appeared beside them, her multifaceted eyes gleaming. "Excellent observation, Cadet Rice. Very few non-telepathic species perceive Korathi inflection. Unit Theta 7 passes with full marks." Caelrin's jaw tightened. The human had just saved his team from failure. But instead of gratitude, the Xylarian leaned close, whispering in his melodic native tongue, a series of rapid liquid syllables that the translator didn't catch fast enough. Sounded mocking. Sounded like laughter. Ethan felt a sting in his chest. He'd endured worse, but somehow, being laughed at in a language he didn't understand, it cut deeper. That night, in his dorm pod, he deactivated his translator implant and began studying Xylarian syntax from the Academy database. The glyphs were complex, the grammar labyrinthine, musical tones interwoven with pitch and rhythm. It would take months to master, maybe years. But Ethan Rice had something most aliens didn't: persistence born from being underestimated. 3. The Cadet Games. Weeks passed. The Academy's training intensified. Zero-gravity combat drills, hyperspatial navigation, diplomacy simulations. Ethan held his own, though Caelrin continued his subtle jabs. During mealtime, the Xylarian would imitate Ethan's accent when speaking Galactic Common. "Can you pass the nutrient paste?" Caelrin said once, mimicking Ethan's rough consonants. "Such harsh sounds. Your species must be perpetually angry." The table roared with laughter. Ethan just smiled. "You should hear us when we're happy." Behind the smile, he kept practicing in secret. He played Xylarian music, studied their poetry, their philosophy of melodic truth, where meaning was layered beneath tone and rhythm. Humans communicated with words, Xylarians with music. He discovered something else. Their language was not just sound but emotion. Every syllable carried a subtle emotional signature. To speak Xylarian perfectly, one had to feel it. And that became his obsession. 4. The Field Mission. The cadets' first off-world mission was a routine supply escort to a neutral moon colony. The exercise was meant to test coordination and diplomacy under pressure. But as fate would have it, nothing went as planned. Halfway through the mission, their shuttle's navigation array failed during an ion storm. Static flooded the comms. The ship spun, losing altitude. "Stabilizers offline," Caelrin shouted, gripping the controls. "I'm rerouting power." "Too slow," Ethan barked. "Engage the auxiliary dampeners." Caelrin turned, eyes blazing. "Don't give me orders, Earther." Lightning crackled across the hull. The craft lurched violently. Ethan leapt to the console, fingers flying. His human instincts, honed from Earth's chaotic flight conditions, kicked in. He redirected the power manually, forcing the stabilizers to reboot. The ship leveled, barely, and landed hard on the moon's surface. Then, murmurs of relief filled the cabin. Ethan stood, breath ragged. Caelrin glared at him but said nothing. For the first time, the Xylarian looked uncertain. They were stranded until recovery ships arrived. The storm blocked long-range communication. Over the next days, the cadets built shelter, rationed supplies, and took turns maintaining the distress beacon. Tension simmered between Ethan and Caelrin. Until the night everything changed. The attack, the moon's atmosphere shimmered with strange auroras. Ethan had just finished his watch when the ground trembled, a low rumble that grew into a quake. The camp erupted in chaos as figures emerged from the mist, raiders, scavengers from the outer rings. They weren't sentient in the traditional sense. Half organic, half machine, remnants of a forgotten war. Their language was little more than static and screeching pulses. The cadets scrambled for defense. Plasma bursts lit the air. Ethan ducked behind a rock, returning fire. Caelrin fought fiercely, his movements fluid, but the raiders overwhelmed their perimeter. A burst struck Caelrin's shield generator. He fell pinned beneath debris. A raider advanced, blade raised. Ethan didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward, tackled the raider, and fired point-blank. The creature exploded in a shower of sparks. Caelrin stared at him, dazed. Why did you?" Ethan grunted, lifting the debris. "Because you're my teammate. Now move." They fought side by side until the storm of attackers retreated into the mist. When silence finally fell, the camp was in ruins, but the cadets were alive. Caelrin sat by the dying fire later that night. His scales dimmed. "You saved my life." Ethan shrugged. "Would have done it for anyone." Caelrin's voice was quieter now. "I misjudged you, human. I thought your species crude. But you act with honor." Ethan gave a tired smile. "Guess accents don't matter much when plasma bolts are flying." Caelrin gave a soft laugh. "Perhaps not." Still, a flicker of curiosity lit the Xylarian's eyes. "You've been listening to us, haven't you? Learning our tongue." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah. Trying to, anyway." Caelrin tilted his head. "It takes years for non-Xylarians to grasp the tonal layers. You'll never sound authentic." Ethan smirked faintly. "Maybe not." He said nothing more that night. 6. The test rescue came 2 days later. The cadets returned to Aurelian Prime battered but alive. Their survival was deemed a triumph of cooperation, though the official report credited collective effort. Everyone knew who had kept the team alive. Still, the final Academy evaluation loomed. A simulation where cadets negotiated peace between two hostile alien factions. It was broadcast Academy-wide. Each team would have to mediate a truce using only the native languages of the species involved. When Unit Theta-7 received its assignment, Caelrin's expression darkened. "The simulation pairs us with the Xylar Confederacy and the Draith Dominion. You realize what that means?" Ethan nodded slowly. "One of them speaks your language." Caelrin folded his arms. "Then I will lead the negotiation. Your translator will not suffice." Ethan only smiled. "Understood." The chamber filled with spectators, cadets, instructors, even envoys from visiting worlds. The holographic projection shimmered, forming two alien councils across the round table, the Xylar faction on one side, the Draith on the other. Caelrin began the proceedings in flawless Xylarian. His voice rippled like song, his tones fluid and precise. The Draith delegates responded with guttural clicks, their meaning filtered through a diplomatic AI. But the simulation was designed to escalate. The AI translator suddenly glitched, distorting phrases. Misunderstandings grew. The Draith leader misinterpreted a Xylarian idiom as an insult. Weapons shimmered into view. The chamber's tension became electric. Caelrin froze, his translator lagging. The Xylarian side shouted accusations. The Draith roared. Chaos loomed. Ethan rose slowly. And then he spoke. In perfect, flowing Xylarian. The words came like a melody. His voice soft but resonant, carrying tone and rhythm, emotion layered through each syllable. The entire chamber went silent. Honored delegates, he said in their language, let not the melody of peace be drowned by the noise of pride. We stand not as rivals, but as echoes of the same song, seeking harmony across the stars. Every Xylarian delegate froze. Even Caelrin stared, mouth slightly open. Ethan's pronunciation was flawless, not just phonetically accurate, but emotionally tuned. He spoke with the empathy and cadence of one who understood. The Draith translator, now resynced, processed his words. The Draith leader lowered his weapon. Moments later, the simulation registered a successful peace accord. Silence filled the chamber, then thunderous applause. Instructor Velcara rose. Cadet Rice. How did you master Xylarian so perfectly? Ethan smiled faintly. He mocked my accent. So I decided to learn his. 7. The aftermath, the story of the human who spoke Xylarian spread across the academy like wildfire. For weeks, cadets from every species stopped Ethan in the corridors, asking him to say phrases in their languages. What had started as ridicule turned into respect and fascination. Caelrin approached him one morning at the hoverdocks. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by quiet sincerity. You have changed many minds here, Ethan Rice. Including mine, he said softly. I mocked you for your voice. Yet you used it to unite us. Ethan chuckled. Guess I finally learned to grind rocks elegantly. Caelrin smiled. In Xylarian there is a saying. The melody of truth can only be heard by those who listen in silence. You have listened well, my friend. They clasped hands, human and Xylarian, a gesture of alliance that, in time, would become symbolic of Earth's official acceptance into the Galactic Council. Years later, years passed. Ethan Rice rose through the ranks of the Intergalactic Peace Corps, eventually becoming Earth's first ambassador to the Xylar Confederacy. His speeches were legendary, not for their complexity but for their empathy. He always delivered them in the language of the host world. At the Academy's centennial celebration, now Admiral Caelrin stood beside him on the grand dais. The crowd, thousands of beings from 100 worlds, watched as Ethan addressed them, his voice resonating across the amphitheater. In every word, he said, there is a story. In every accent, a history. I once thought communication was about translation, but it's really about connection. When you understand someone's language, not just their words but their heart, you bridge galaxies. The applause that followed was not just sound. It was a chorus of 1,000 languages harmonizing into one. 9. Epilogue. Later that evening, as the stars shimmered above Aurelian Prime, Caelrin joined Ethan on the balcony. You know, Caelrin said with a rare grin, your Xylarian accent still carries a hint of Earth's roughness. Ethan laughed. Good. Wouldn't want to lose my roots. They stood in silence, watching the auroras dance, a human and an alien, once divided by words, now bound by understanding. And somewhere in that quiet harmony, the universe felt just a little smaller.